What is up, math superstars? In this edition of Mr. Peterson Presents, I'm bringing to you our Unit 6 study guide answer video. So in this video, we'll be going question by question through our entire study guide. So here we go. So let's start right here with question number 1. We have k is greater than 5. And so we need to go ahead and graph this inequality. So let's go ahead and we graph 5 right here in the middle. We'll go 6 and 7, and then we'll go 4 and 3. So first step is we're drawing out our number line. Now we're going to go ahead and add in our circle here. So we're going to have an open circle on 5 since we have greater than. And let's go ahead and test to see which direction our line is going. Here, so let's go ahead and figure this out. So we're going to go ahead and start with 4. So we can fill in 4 for k. Is 4 greater than 5? No, it is not. How about 3? Is 3 greater than 5? No, it is not. How about 6? Is 6 greater than 5? Yes. How about 7? 7 is greater than 5. So we're going toward our smiley faces that we drew. And we're going to go ahead and color in our arrow to the right. Number 2, we have 2 is less than or equal to y. So our first step here is we're going to draw out our number line. 3, 4. You can also use this video to check to see if you got it correct also. So we had the less than or equal to, so that means we're going to have a closed circle. We're going to include 2 in our solution. And now let's figure out which way our arrow is going here. So let's go ahead and start with 1. Is 2 less than or equal to 1? So 2 is not less than 1. How about 0? Is 2 less than 0? No. How about 3? Is 2 less than or equal to 3? So 2 is definitely less than 3. How about 4? Is 2 less than 4? Yes. So let's go ahead and fill in our arrow to the right. Because when we shade in our arrow, those are all the solutions to this inequality, is where the arrow is going. What about number 3? We have x is greater than or equal to 10. So just like we did in 1 and 2, let's go ahead and draw out our number line here. And let's go ahead and put in, we have a closed circle on 10 since it's greater than or equal to. Let's figure out which way our arrow is going. So is 9 greater than 10? No. How about 8? Is 8 greater than 10? No. So is 11. 11 is greater than 10. 12 is greater than 10. So let's go toward our smiley faces. To the right. So now we're given the graph. Let's figure out the inequality. And just remember, we can write our inequalities 2 ways. First way we can write it is we can write it with the variable on the left and the number on the right. So we gotta figure out which way our sign is going. So 13. So our solutions have to be, number should be 13. Oh, I wrote 10 there originally, but that should be 13. So x is what to 13? So we can say x is greater than 13. So if we test it out, if we put in 14, 14 is greater than 13, so that's going the right way. The second way we could write this, we could write it with 13 on the left and x on the right. And so all we'll have to do is we take our sign that we currently have, and let's go ahead now and flip it. So if we write it with the variable on the left, a variable on the right instead of on the left, we flip our sign so it reads 13 is less than x. So now let's go ahead and try this one here. So we have x on the left and -3 on the right. It is a closed circle, so we know we're dealing with greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. So when we do this, if we looked at -4, -4 is less than or equal to -3. And if we're going to go ahead and write this the second way, we put 3 on the left x on the right, and we flip our sign. So we take our sign, let's go ahead and flip it. So we can read this as 3 is greater than or equal to x. And some of you will say, do I have to write this both ways? Yes, you do, because on our test, you will actually be given a graph and have to identify both ways that is written. So how about number 6? So we have our variable on the left, our number on the right. So we know we're dealing with either greater than or less than. So we know we're dealing with a less than sign because -1 is less than 0. We can also write this as 0 is greater than x. Here's number 7. We have x and -32. We're dealing with the greater than or equal to sign since we have a closed circle on -32. And we can also write this -32 is less than or equal to x. So we remember that when we write it both ways. If we write it with the variable on the left to start, we remember to flip that sign to give us the second way to write it. So now question number 8 says this, read the inequality. V is less than 0. So which of the following could be a value of V? So we got to figure out which of these numbers is less than 0. And so we have -10, definitely less than 0. 0 less than 0, no, those are equal. How about 0.5? That is greater than 0, so that can't be it. And 1 is greater than 0. So we're just left with letter A, -10, could be one of the values for V. So with this one, we have A is greater than or equal to 7. Which of the following could not be a value of A? So be careful with these tricky words right there. If it says not, so which of the following, if we filled in, would not work? So if we filled in 7 for A, 7 is actually equal to 7, so that would work with this greater than or equal to. So that's out. Is -7 greater than or equal to -7? Nope, so that would be a solution. How about 8? 8 is greater than, that wouldn't work because we're looking for the ones that do not fit. And the same thing with 10, 10 is greater than. So we only have one answer here, and that is letter B, -7. So now we're given these sequences. We have to determine whether they're arithmetic, geometric, or neither, and also identify the rule that goes with these. And so for our first one here is that we have 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Our rule is we are adding 1 to get to the next number. And so we call that is an arithmetic sequence. And our rule for this is n plus 1. So if we wanted to find out what the next number was, we just would be adding 1 to the last term in the sequence to get our next number. So how about number 11? So let's try to figure out what's going on here. So to go from 5 to 6, we are adding 1. 6 to 8, we are adding 2. 8 to 11, we add 3. And so our pattern does not fit the rules for arithmetic sequences, so we're just going to write neither for number 11. And so here we go. So we have number 12. To go from 2 to 4, we are going to be multiplying by 2. 4 to 8, we're multiplying by 2. 8 to 16, we're multiplying by 2. So we can call this a geometric sequence. And that means we are doing n times 2 to get to our next number. And for number 13 here, if we added 5, 8 plus 5 is 13, and then plus 5 is 18, plus 5 is 23, 23 plus 5 is 28. So we're dealing with an arithmetic sequence. And the rule is n plus 5. All right, so now we got 14 through 19 we're going to do right here on this slide here. So first step is we're going to figure out what the rule is. And then 14 and 15 match up together. So for 14, we're going to figure out what the next three terms are. And then we have to figure out what the 10th term is. So for this section, please feel free to use a calculator because it'll help you out a bunch. So for number 14 to go from 0 to 13, we can go ahead and add 13. 13 plus 13 is 26. 26 plus 13 is 39. So we know our rule is n plus 13. So in your calculator, go ahead and hit 39 plus 13. Should give you 52. And then a real simple way in your calculator to figure this out, leave 52 in your calculator, just hit the plus sign and then 13 again. And that will give you 65. And then plus 13 again gives you 78. So now for question number 15, it's asking what is the 10th term in the sequence from number 14. So if we were going to go ahead and number the ones we currently did, we did 1, 2, 3, 4th term, 5th term, 6th term, 7th term. We need to go 8, 9, and 10 to figure it out. So 78 plus 13 again gives us 91. 91 plus 13 gives us 104. And 104 plus 13 gives us a grand total of 117. So our 10th term in the sequence would be 117 if we kept going with the rule n plus 13. So what about number 16? Our rule here, let's figure this out. 2, let's try plus 3 gives us 5. 5 plus 3 gives us 8. 8 plus 3 gives us 11. So 11 plus 3 gives us 14. Then hit plus 3 in that calculator again, gives us 17. Plus 3 gives us 20. So now for question number 17, we have to figure out what the 9th term in the sequence is. So let's go ahead and label out our terms. We'll start, choose our first term. So we have our 2nd term, 3rd term, 4th term, 5th term, 6th term, 7th term. We need to go 8 and 9. So our rule was n plus 3. So let's keep going. Plus 3 gives us 23. Plus 3 again gives us 26. So we say that the 9th term in our sequence for number 16 is 26. And then number 18. And so if we went to, let's try times 3, because we know that if we're adding here, the numbers kind of start jumping pretty big here. So we know that pretty much it's probably going to be multiplication for this one. So if we did 2 times 3 gives us 6. 6 times 3 gives us 18. 18 times 3 gives us 54. So 54 times 3 gives us 162. And then let's keep 162 in your calculator. Just hit times 3. That is going to give us 486. Times 3 gives us 1,458. Let's write our rule down so we remember what we're going to be doing here. So we know that is n times 3. We have to figure out what the 8th term in our sequence is. So let's go ahead and label out our terms. See how far we are so far. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, we just need to go one more. So hit times 3 again in that calculator. It's going to give us 4,374 would be our 8th term in our sequence. So question number 20 says, which pattern has a common ratio of 3? So for common ratio of 3, that means it'll be some number times 3 is going to give us our common ratio. So let's go ahead and figure out which pattern that's going to be. So let's take a look at pattern number 1. Does 6 times 3 equal 11? Nope. Cross that one out. So pattern 2, 6 times 3 gives us 18. 18 times 3 gives us 54. 54 times 3 gives us 162. So there's one pattern. Let's check out the other ones here. Make sure we're on the right track. So 6 times 3 gives us 12. No, pattern 3 does not work. And pattern 4, that's adding 4, so that's not going to work either. So we're left with pattern 2. And so for questions like this, make sure that if you highlighted this box pattern 2 as your answer, but for some reason did not look at the order of the answers here, once again, I will always give you credit for proper work, but take a look at how these answers are listed here. It starts with pattern 2 is our first answer. So just be careful what you're circling here, but we're looking for letter F for pattern 2. So here's 21. We're looking for the common difference of 4 here. So that rule is going to be n plus 4. So now let's try to see if we can find one of these patterns here that will work for us. So here, pattern number 1, 6 plus 4 is definitely not 11. So let's cross out pattern 1. 6 plus 4 does not equal 18. How about 6 plus 4 equals 12? That's wrong. So we're left with pattern number 4. I'm going to circle that just to make sure that I got my answer correct. And then we go to the answers here, which are all out of order. But you know what? We're looking for letter D, pattern number 4. So we're going to look at the graph. We need to figure out which two inequalities correctly represent this graph. And so once again with graphing, we can write it two ways. With the variable on the left and the number on the right, we know that this x has to be less than 4. And then if we rewrote it a second way with our variable on the right, we can say that 4 is greater than x. And so what we have to do now is we have to match up our answer right here that we wrote out, so we're showing our work for our problems, to one of these answers here, A, B, C, or D. So let's go ahead and take a look at these. First step is let's go ahead and cross out the ones that have greater than or equal to in them. Get rid of both. Let's get rid of both B and C because we don't even want to look at those because it's kind of confusing. So now let's figure out which one matches our answer, our beautiful work right there. So letter A is x is less than 4, so there's one answer. But both of them have to match up correctly. So then the other one is 4 is less than x. Our answer says 4 is greater than x, so A is wrong. The only one we're left with is letter D. Here we have x is less than 4 and 4 is greater than x. And let's go ahead and write this graph here two different ways. We can write this x and negative 2 on the right. We're looking at x is greater than or equal to negative 2, or negative 2 is less than or equal to x. Those are the two correct ways to show this graph. So let's go and take a look at our answers here. Oh, look at that. We don't have to write it one way. Let's go ahead and get rid of, if we're stuck, let's go ahead and get rid of the ones that would be the open circle. And the one that's correct is going to be letter F. X is greater than or equal to negative 2. So here we're given this graph. This graph tells us x is greater than negative 2 or negative 2 is less than x. So let's go and figure out which two graphs, which two inequalities match this graph. So let's go ahead and cross out the ones that have greater than or equal to, because that doesn't match. And so let's take a look at G. X is greater than negative 2, so that one works. And then negative 2 is less than x. That's exactly what I wrote. And it's what you should have wrote also because G is the correct answer. That's it for our Math 6, Unit 6 study guide. Once again, if you need anything, any questions, comments, concerns, please leave a comment below. Be more than happy to help you out.